The rain in Gangnam didn't fall. It whispered, like secrets slipping from tall buildings. Street lights bled gold onto slick sidewalks, and neon signs blinked sleepily against the misted glass of a waiting taxi. Nora Michaels leaned one elbow against the steering wheel, scrolling through an old photo on her phone. Her bakery in Detroit. The one she had poured her soul into. The one she'd lost. She sighed, locked the screen, and glanced at the dashboard clock. 12:47 a.m. Just one more ride, she mumbled, adjusting her ponytail and wiping condensation from the windshield. Then I'm done. Her phone chirped. New pickup, luxury district. The name blinked on the screen. K-Woo. Let's see what flavor of snob you are, she muttered, tapping accept. When the rear passenger door opened, she didn't look back right away. But then she heard it. A voice that wasn't tired, or drunk, or flirtatious. Just cold. Take me to Lotta Tower. No stops. Nora glanced in the mirror. The man was impossibly well dressed. Black suit, top button closed, tie not even loosened despite the late hour. Jaw sharp, posture stiff, and yet, eyes hollow. She started driving. Silence swallowed the cab. He didn't speak, neither did she. Not at first, but after a few blocks, she couldn't help herself. You know, you rich types are funny, she said casually, one hand on the wheel. Act like everyone's beneath you, then expect miracles from a stranger driving through traffic at midnight. He blinked slowly, not even looking up from his phone. I didn't ask for your opinion. Nora snorted. Didn't offer one. Just saying. I charge extra for bad attitudes and egos larger than your briefcase. That made him glance up, briefly. Their eyes met in the mirror. She didn't flinch. He raised an eyebrow. You're not Korean. Nope. You drive here full time? Full time enough to regret the decision 3 times a week. A pause. The faintest upward twitch of his mouth. Not quite a smile. The ride continued in an uneasy pace. Nora fiddled with the radio, landing on soft R&B. He didn't protest. At a red light, she snuck another glance. His fingers tightened around the phone, knuckles white. His jaw was clenched. Not anger, stress, not my business, she reminded herself. But the air in the cab had changed. Not quite flirtation, but curiosity now crackling like static between them. When they arrived at the tower, he tapped his phone without speaking and handed her a stack of bills. Much more than the fare. Nora looked at the cash, unimpressed. You forgot something, she said, holding out the money. He didn't reach for it, just stared. You think I need a handout? Still no answer. You're not paying for my silence, she added, dropping the bills back onto his lap. Just my service. And we're done. Something flickered across his face then. Surprise. Maybe something more. She turned back to the wheel. You should go before I start charging you for the silence, too. Without a word, he stepped out into the rain and disappeared into the building. Only after she got home did she realize it. One cufflink. Heavy, silver, engraved with the initials KHW. Still nestled in the crease of the back seat. Nora frowned. She held it in her palm, the metal cool against her skin. Figures, she muttered. The man doesn't talk, but leaves behind a breadcrumb. She placed it in the glove box. Would have tossed it, if not for the way he'd looked at her in that mirror. Not like a man seeing someone beneath him, but like a man startled to be seen at all. In his penthouse suite, Hyeo-woo sat on the edge of his couch, one shoe still on. His assistant's messages piled up unread on his phone. His fiancée's name lit up the screen. He ignored it. He was still thinking about her. The driver. The woman with fire in her eyes and no interest in his money. The only real conversation he'd had in weeks. He looked out at the Seoul skyline. For the first time in a long time, it felt small and empty. He picked up his phone, opened the ride-hailing app. His thumb hovered over the request button. No destination, no reason, just a name, Nora Michaels. He tapped, request sent. The next morning, Nora almost didn't accept the ride request. The username was strange. K1 and the pickup spot was again in Gangnam's luxury district. Same time, same silence in the text field. Suspicious, yes. Dangerous, maybe. But Rent didn't care about feelings. She hit accept. When she pulled up, there he was. Same suit, same haunted eyes, same quiet tension that made the air feel wired. He opened the door without waiting for her greeting. You again? Nora asked, glancing in the mirror. His fingers tapped his knee once. Is that a problem? It is if you're stalking me. He blinked, not offended, more startled that someone could say that to him. No, I just prefer your driving. She raised an eyebrow. The way I step on the brakes, or the way I crush your ego? This time he did smile, a small one, private and real. Both. Their route was short. A corporate building where men like him made decisions that affected entire countries. But he didn't get out right away. He lingered. So she put the car in park and turned to face him fully. No GPS can find where you're headed today? He looked down at his hands. I don't want to go where my life is taking me. Nora swallowed. That sounded like truth, the kind that weighs heavy. Everyone has a dream, she said softly. What's yours? He paused a long time before answering. I don't remember. His voice cracked so faintly she almost missed it. Then borrow mine, she offered lightly, but her chest tightened. One day, I'll open my own bakery again. Somewhere warm, cozy, smells like cinnamon and new beginnings. He looked at her like she'd just handed him light. What would you call it? She smiled without thinking. Bread and grace. He nodded slowly as though memorizing it. She pulled the car back into drive. You know, she added, eyes forward, you always look like someone stole your birthday. Do I? Yeah. Rich, miserable, emotionally constipated. He laughed. The first real warm sound she'd heard from him. It filled the car. It filled her. But every ride had to end. He stepped out and hesitated. Then, Nora. She looked at him through the open window. You make the city feel less suffocating. And before she could respond, he was gone. Across Seoul in a pristine penthouse, Han Soo-ah watched her fiancé's phone buzz unanswered again. She smoothed a hand over her designer dress, eyes narrowing at the screen. He's drifting. Her father, reading financial reports, didn't look up. Then anchor him. Move the wedding forward. Soo-ah's lips curved into a determined smile. Yes, father. Back at Kang headquarters, Yoon Ji-won, COO, best friend, human lie detector, reviewed corporate reports when he noticed unusual spendings in the CEO's accounts. Ride-hailing receipts. Same driver, night after night. Ji-won leaned back slowly. Well, that's new. Later, Nora waited in her apartment, cooking instant noodles, the cufflink still in her glove box. Every time her phone buzzed, she secretly hoped it was another request. But this time, it wasn't him. It was a notification from a Korean news app she forgot to uninstall. A headline with a photo. Kang Hyeo-woo announces engagement to Han Soo-ah. Wedding to unite two major conglomerates. Nora's chopsticks froze midair. Then, like a delayed punch to the ribs, the realization, the man who sat in her taxi last night, the one laughing in her car this morning, the one confessing he didn't want the life he lived, was a billionaire. A taken billionaire. She stared at the article, heart pounding in her throat. Her voice came out a whisper, Hyeo-woo Kang? She dropped her phone. What the heck did I just get myself into? The rain returned the next evening, harsher than before, like Seoul was angry on her behalf. Nora was angrier. Her phone buzzed with another request from K1. She stared at the name, jaw clenched. A billionaire? Engaged? And still taking her taxi every night? No. She slammed the car into drive and headed toward the pickup point anyway. Fury didn't pay bills either. He got in. Same seat. Same silence. Except this time, she didn't let it breathe. You done using me for your midnight boredom? Hyeo-woo blinked at the icicles in her voice. What? Don't what me? She kept her eyes locked on him in the mirror. I know who you are. CEO Kang. The man whose wedding is on every news screen in Seoul. His expression fell. Not guilt. Pain. Nora, you're engaged, she snapped. Why are you in my taxi instead of planning your life with the woman you're supposed to love? The muscles in his jaw tightened. I didn't lie to you. He leaned forward slightly, voice low. I just didn't tell you what everyone already knows. That's a cute excuse, she shot back. You think I sit in this car because it's fun? His voice cracked. Unplanned. Raw. You're the only moment of peace I have. The only place where I'm not a headline, or a product, or a weapon my family uses to stay powerful. Silence pulsed between them. She swallowed, but she wasn't ready to be his emotional escape. Find peace somewhere else, she said firmly. Your fiancé deserves better than a man chasing rides with another woman. He closed his eyes a moment, defeated. When the ride ended, he tried to speak again, tried to ask her to dinner, to explain, to give him a chance to just be human. Nora shook her head. No dinner, no explanations, no more lies by omission, and she drove away before he could reply. Hours later, she finally parked, hands still trembling from adrenaline. She went to grab her bag and a notebook lay on the back seat. Leather-bound, minimalistic, his style. She cursed softly. Not again. She almost tossed it aside. She almost didn't look. But curiosity isn't a gentle thing. She opened the notebook. The first page wasn't written business reports or corporate strategies. It was a speech. The ink smudged as if written in haste or frustration. A page half ripped. Marriage should be a choice, not a merger. Sua, I hope one day you'll find someone who sees you, not your name. Nora's heartbeat stumbled. This wasn't a playboy. This wasn't a man in love with the life he had. A small yellow post-it was tucked inside, an address scrawled in precise Korean. Probably where she could return the notebook. Probably where she could give herself closure. Probably where she could confirm he was the kind of man she shouldn't fall for. Her fingers tightened around the leather. Fine, she muttered. I'm giving this stupid book back and cutting this weird thread right now. She drove. The address led her to a pristine event hall, lit like a palace. A sign out front read, Wedding Rehearsal. Kang and Han families. Private. Nora stopped breathing. No. 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 Too late. Guests in designer suits weaved around her. A wedding planner brushed past with floral arrangements. Her heart pounded. Turn around, leave, run. But she couldn't move, because across the room, under chandeliers that looked like falling stars, stood Kang Hyeo-woo in a tuxedo, his fiancée adjusting his boutonniere. Flashbulbs captured their perfect image, their perfect lie. He looked miserable. She stood frozen, and then he looked up, eyes searching, eyes finding her. His breath hitched. Her world stopped. Everything, every lie, every truth, every unspoken thing, collided in the space between them. Rainwater dripped from her umbrella to the polished floor. Her hand clutched his notebook. His fiancée followed his gaze and saw Nora. The future blew apart like shattered glass. For one suspended moment, Seoul's elite vanished around him, disappearing beneath a single devastating truth. Nora was here. Hyeo-woo's breath locked in his chest. He recovered enough composure to force a stiff smile at Soo-ah and murmured something about checking on a last-minute detail. He walked away before she could question it. But it wasn't walking, it was chasing. Outside the main hall, Nora stood pressed against a marble pillar, notebook clutched like a shield. Her heart hammered. Her brain screamed to run. Instead, she waited. Arms trembling with indignation, she refused to show. Hyeo-woo pushed through the door, breath uneven. His tie now loosened, as if even silk was suffocating him. Nora. He exhaled her name like a plea. She laughed once, bitter. Returning your property. Again. She shoved the notebook into his chest. Hard. His hand covered it, but he didn't remove it. Nora, please. I'm not part of your drama, she snapped, stepping back. You can't drop breadcrumbs and expect me to follow you through your castle. He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, ruining it in frustration. You're not a distraction. You're not a mistake. His voice roughened. You're my clarity. Her throat tightened. A dangerous weakness. She reached into her bag and pulled out the silver cufflink, the one with his life engraved on it. This, she said quietly, placing it in his palm, belongs with your future. And whatever this, she gestured between them, is, it can't exist when you already promised forever to someone else. His face twisted. Anger at himself. Helplessness. You think I chose this? He whispered. Every decision in my life has been dictated by legacy, mergers, what benefits the company. Nobody ever asked what benefits me. Until you. Nora took a breath to steady her shaking. Then why are you marrying Soo-ah? Silence. The only answer he had was the one she already knew. Family, empire, obligation, not love. And that's exactly why I can't be here, Nora said, swallowing hard. I refuse to be the tragedy in someone else's fairy tale. She stepped past him, but his hand caught her wrist, gently, like a man begging without words. Nora, his voice broke. I don't want that future. Not anymore. Before she could respond, heels clicked sharply on the marble floor. Soo-ah stood at the end of the hall. Her perfect composure had fractured. Just slightly, enough to show the cracks beneath the diamond. Her gaze flicked from Nora to Hyeo-woo's hand still on Nora's wrist. Her jaw tightened. That's the reason? She asked coldly. A taxi driver? Nora pulled her hand free, refusing to shrink. Soo-ah's eyes sharpened, calculating, wounded, furious all at once. This conversation isn't over, she said to Hyeo-woo, voice like steel, then to Nora, and neither is yours. She left before the tension could ignite further. Hyeo-woo turned back toward Nora. Apology and desperation etched in his features. But she stepped away. I won't be the woman you choose only when you're falling apart, Nora whispered. Figure out who you are without everyone else pulling the strings. Then maybe you'll know what to ask of me. And she walked out, alone, refusing to look back. But he did. He watched until the doors closed behind her. Later that night, the wedding planners finished their work. Guests finalized schedules. Printers whirred with glossy cardstock. Wedding invitations were stamped and sealed. Hundreds, ready for mailing. Soo-ah smiled at the stack like a queen protecting her crown. Ji-won stood nearby, arms crossed, observing the tension he wasn't meant to see. He caught a glimpse of Hyeo-woo through the office window, staring at his phone, thumb hovering over a saved contact. Ji-won followed his gaze. Nora Michaels, taxi. Hyeo-woo didn't press call. He just stared, like the button itself was a lifeline he was terrified to grab. Ji-won's eyes narrowed, realization finally settling. This wasn't obsession, this was love, a dangerous kind, a real kind, one that could destroy an empire, or rebuild a man. The days after the rehearsal unraveled like silent bombs. Nora deleted the ride-hailing app, blocked the alias account, switched shifts, switched routes, switched her ringtone so she wouldn't flinch every time her phone lit up. And still, every time a man in a suit raised his hand for a cab, her heart skipped. But none of them were him. She told herself she was fine. That peace came from walking away, not from waiting on a man who lived in a penthouse made of steel and lies. But the ache in her chest disagreed. Hyeo-woo wasn't fine either. He sent no flowers, no texts, no calls. Instead, he got in cabs driven by strangers and stared out the window with eyes that didn't see the city anymore. Ji-won offered him his usual coffee at the office. Still avoiding caffeine and accountability? He asked with dry humor. Hyeo-woo didn't answer, but later that afternoon, he left a board meeting early. Nora was checking the tire pressure on her cab when she heard it, the unmistakable hush of designer shoes on concrete. She straightened slowly, wiped her hands, turned. He was standing there, in the middle of her world. No chauffeur, no assistant, just Hyeo-woo, sleeves rolled up, shirt slightly wrinkled, like he didn't know how to exist without structure anymore. "You drive everyone but me now?" he asked. She stared at him, unamused. "I don't drive distractions." His eyes softened. "I'm not trying to distract you." "Then what are you doing here?" "I can't explain in the back seat anymore." He stepped forward. "Have dinner with me." She crossed her arms. "Is this another secret night? No cameras? No risk?" "No." His tone was steady. "This is me, asking you to sit across from me. Not as an escape, but as a man who needs to be honest." She hesitated. For once, his gaze didn't hide behind power. "Fine," she said at last, "but it's dinner. That's it. As a businesswoman." He almost smiled. "I've never been more interested in a business meeting." They chose a quiet restaurant tucked near Namsan Tower, where the lights dimmed low and the clinking of glasses created just enough white noise. Nora wore black, understated, bold. A soft silk wrap hugged her curves. Her curls framed her face like a crown. Hyeo-woo couldn't stop looking at her. She noticed. "Careful," she said between sips of water. "Your fiancé might sense your jaw softening." "I'm not married yet." "And yet," she replied, tilting her head, "you're engaged, and I'm foolish for being here." He reached across the table, careful not to touch her. "You're not foolish. You're the only thing that's made sense in months," she sighed, folding her napkin. "Tell me the truth, Hyeo-woo. Not the curated version, the human one." He looked down at his plate. "My mother left when I was 10. My father didn't say her name again for 16 years. I was raised in silence and strategy. I learned that love was unreliable, but power, that stayed." She watched him carefully. "When did it stop being enough?" "The night you made me take my money back." Nora blinked. He went on, voice quiet. "You made me feel like a man, not a transaction." She didn't answer. Instead, she looked down at her hands. "I had a bakery," she finally said, "back home in Detroit. It was called Fire and Flour. My dream, my savings, my everything." "What happened?" "My ex-boyfriend. He was also my business partner. He took the capital loan in both our names, maxed it out behind my back, then disappeared with my best friend. I lost the bakery, the building, everything. Hyeo-woo's chest tightened. I came to Seoul to breathe again, she said. Driving taxis was supposed to be temporary. Then, you got in the back seat. They looked at each other, emotions raw between them. No more secrets, he said softly. Nora nodded. No more games. Meanwhile, across town in a high-rise dining room, Sua sat beside her father, pushing perfectly cut wagyu around her plate without eating. He's distracted, she said flatly. Her father didn't look up from his tablet. Then make him focus. It's not just hesitation, she continued. There's a woman, a foreigner. Now he looked up. Do you have a name? Not yet, but I will. He nodded once. Handle it discreetly. We can't afford a scandal, not this close to the merger. Sua smiled, cold and thin. Don't worry. I'll make sure the foreigner knows where she doesn't belong. But Seoul was already talking. Someone, a hotel staffer or a cafe worker, had taken a photo. Hyeo-woo, walking toward Nora's taxi. Another photo. Her hand on the door. His face softened. A grainy third shot. Him in the back seat, the city lights blurring behind him like a cinematic dream. By the next morning, every tabloid had it. Kang conglomerate CEO spotted in mystery woman's taxi. Is the wedding in trouble? Nora woke to the sound of relentless knocking on her door. Not just one person, many. Camera flashes seeped through the tiny peephole like lightning. Voices barked from the hallway in rapid Korean. Who was the black woman with Kang Hyeo-woo? Was she his mistress? Taxi driver seduces billionaire. Her stomach flipped. It wasn't a rumor anymore. It was a headline. She backed away from the door, shaky breath trapped in her throat, her phone vibrating nonstop with calls from unknown numbers, social media blowing up with comments. Cruel ones. Her worst memory, betrayal, had followed her across an ocean. Meanwhile, in a skyscraper built on the weight of his family name, Hyeo-woo stood in front of his directors, all of them red-faced with panic. We've issued a statement, his PR manager said. It clarifies the woman was merely a driver. Nothing personal. Merely? Hyeo-woo repeated, voice dangerously low. It's the best way to kill the gossip, someone else insisted. A misunderstanding. Leave it at that. He felt something inside him recoil, like he'd just betrayed something sacred. Someone sacred. He clenched his jaw. And what about her safety? We'll send a security team if necessary. Once things die down, she'll vanish from the news. Vanishing wasn't what he wanted. He left the room before they could see the fury burning in his eyes. At the taxi depot, Nora pushed past reporters crowding the entrance. Microphones and cameras smothered her every step. Did he pay you? How long have you been together? Is the wedding canceled because of you? She kept her head down. A co-worker, Hana, rushed to her side and pulled her inside. Are you okay? Hana asked breathlessly. No, Nora whispered. She wasn't okay. She felt hunted. Her phone buzzed. Another message. Unknown number. Please let me explain. She blocked it without reading the name. Hyeo-woo had caused this. She needed him to leave her alone, so she made it as clear as possible. Nora to dispatch. Remove Kang Hyeo-woo from my client list. Permanently. She exhaled. A sharp, painful release. Her freedom tasted like heartbreak. When Ji-won entered Hyeo-woo's office, the CEO stood with his back turned, fingers pressed against the glass window as Seoul sprawled beneath him like a kingdom he no longer recognized. She blocked me, Hyeo-woo said quietly. Ji-won didn't respond with sympathy. Instead, he sliced straight to truth. You either protect her, he said firmly, or you lose her. Hyeo-woo flinched. She's drowning in chaos you created, Ji-won pushed. You sat silent while the company called her disposable. Hyeo-woo's breathing deepened, every word landing where it hurt most. What do you want me to do? He whispered. Ji-won stepped closer. Tell the truth. Hyeo-woo stared at his reflection in the glass. A man without courage looked back. He turned away. That man had to die. Late evening, in a dimly lit lobby, Hyeo-woo stood before a cluster of journalists and cameras arranged by his father for weekly business updates. But he wasn't there to talk business. He stepped up to the podium, fingers tightening on the edges. Journalists leaned forward. Microphones extended like blades. This afternoon, he began, voice steady, my father's office issued a statement regarding a certain driver. The room thickened with silence. That statement was wrong. Gasps. Pens paused mid-stroke. She is not a mistake, a misunderstanding, or a scandal. His pulse pounded. His truth finally breathed air. I'm holding a press conference tomorrow morning, he continued, eyes fierce, and I will tell the world exactly who she is. Chaos erupted instantly. Questions, flashes, shouts. But Hyeo-woo didn't flinch. He walked off with one promise burning behind him. Tomorrow, I tell the world the truth. Tar? The press room buzzed like a hive on fire. Every reporter, every camera, every hungry gossip columnist in Seoul had shown up for what they thought would be damage control. Instead, Kang Hyeo-woo stepped onto the stage. No tie, sleeves rolled up, jaw tight, and burned the entire script. He faced them without flinching. As of today, he said, voice calm but resolute, the wedding between myself and Han Soo-ah is postponed indefinitely. Gasps rippled through the room like thunder. He continued, eyes fierce beneath the camera lights. There is no scandal. There was no affair. But there was a choice I made in silence. A choice to keep the peace instead of speaking the truth. That ends today. Shutters clicked in a frenzy. Reporters fired questions. Are you confirming the woman in the taxi photos is someone you're romantically involved with? Did you fall for her while engaged? Is she the reason you're calling off the wedding? Hyeo-woo paused, a long beat, then, yes. Another explosion of noise. But she's not a distraction, he added louder. She's the only person who ever saw me. Not my company, not my title, not my family name. Just me. That was the confession he wasn't supposed to make. The one that would dismantle mergers, ignite scandal, and possibly destroy his empire. But for the first time in years, he didn't care. Nora watched it all from her phone, huddled in a laundry room behind her co-worker's apartment, a place she'd borrowed to sleep and hide after the harassment grew too much. Her inbox was flooded with hate. Her number leaked. Her photo plastered across online forums, racial slurs, death threats. You destroyed a dynasty. Just another gold digger. Go back to where you came from. And still, he had stood there, in front of the world, and told the truth. Her hands shook. She didn't know whether to cry, scream, or run again, so she did the only thing that made sense anymore. She disappeared. No goodbye, no message, no destination pinned. She vanished to breathe. Soo-ah's fury was a quiet, deadly thing. In her family's penthouse, she stared out at the skyline with arms crossed, while her father flipped through the press release Hyeo-woo's team had sent. This can be reversed, he muttered. No, she said calmly. This can be eradicated. He looked up. Force the recommitment, Soo-ah continued. Call his father. Cancel his liquidity access. Threaten board seats. Apply pressure. She turned her cold gaze toward the door. He'll remember who he belongs to. Days passed. Nora left the city, and took a job on a small orchard in Jeolla province, far enough from Seoul that no one recognized her face. She wore soft denim again. Her curls stayed wrapped in a scarf. She made tea with mint from the garden and baked bread for a local widow in the mornings. Peace here was different. It was slow, unpolished, not silent, but still. Every night, she sat on the wooden steps of the tiny guest house she rented, watching fireflies and reminding herself not to miss him. Some nights, it even worked. Back in Seoul, Ji-won stood in Hyeo-woo's office doorway. "She's alive," he said softly. Hyeo-woo's head snapped up. "She's okay?" "She's off-grid. But I found her." "Where?" Ji-won handed him a scrap of paper. "You can't just show up with a suit and cameras." "I wasn't planning to," Hyeo-woo replied, standing. "I've already shown her my power." He buttoned his shirt. "It's time I show her my heart." Nora wiped her hands on a kitchen towel and turned to answer the knock at the door. No one was supposed to visit today. She assumed it was the widow next door returning her basket. She opened the door and froze. There he stood, Kang Hyeo-woo, but not in a suit. He wore jeans, a linen button-up, slightly wrinkled, sleeves rolled, no watch, no posture of a CEO. Just a man. She blinked. What are you doing here?" His smile was sheepish, boyish, achingly human. "I remember what you told me before," he said, shifting on his feet. "You said baking was healing." "I did," she whispered. He took a breath, voice barely above the breeze. "Then teach me how to bake." The first thing Hyeo-woo noticed was the smell. Warm, familiar, something like cinnamon mixed with comfort. The second was Nora, hair tied back, cheeks dusted with flour, sleeves rolled to her elbows as she kneaded dough with a rhythm that quieted the whole room. He didn't speak at first. He just watched her, like a man watching sunrise for the first time after living in shadow. "Don't just stand there looking handsome," she said without glancing up. "Wash your hands. You're working." He smiled, a real one, and obeyed. They didn't talk about Seoul. Not yet. Not about the headlines, or the wedding that wasn't, or the empire waiting to devour them both. Instead, they talked about yeast, the science of bread, the beauty of waiting. She taught him how dough rises slow, not with force, but with trust. And in between moments of silence, they found something else. Rhythm. He cracked eggs clumsily. She laughed like it healed her ribs. He mistook sugar for salt, once. She kissed the corner of his jaw and said, "You'll live." They shared books in the evenings. He read her a passage from a memoir about farmers who grew olives in volcanic soil. She closed her eyes and said, "That's what healing feels like." Life from ashes. One afternoon, as sunlight spilled over the wooden countertop, Nora was rolling dough when she felt him stop beside her. She looked up and stilled. Hyeo-woo gently wiped a streak of flour from her cheek, his hand cupping her face. No games, no apologies, no scripts, just tenderness. He leaned in and pressed his lips to her forehead, holding there for a moment longer than breath should allow. Nora closed her eyes. Everything softened. "My entire life," he whispered, "was tasteless. Until you." Tears stung behind her lids, but she didn't let them fall. Instead, she pressed her palm over his heart. "And you," she said, "are the fire I thought I'd lost." They left the countryside 2 days later. Not in secret, not ashamed. Hand in hand. She wore jeans and a cardigan. He wore a white tee and a quiet resolve. It wasn't grand, but it was real. Back in Seoul, the city didn't applaud their return, but it watched. Paparazzi lingered, but at a distance. Board members muttered in corners. The internet, as always, stayed hungry. And still, Hyeo-woo stood taller than before. Now he had someone, worth protecting. Their peace didn't last long. A letter arrived at Nora's new address, unsigned but unmistakable. Leave Kang Hyeo-woo quietly, or your visa will disappear faster than your bakery. We've already contacted immigration. Nora folded the letter slowly, her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. But something inside her, the same something that had rebuilt her before, tensed. That night, Ji-won showed Hyeo-woo the memo Sua's father had leaked. A proposal to blacklist any business known to be affiliated with Nora Michaels, starting with food vendors and local publications. You already know what they're doing, Ji-won said. They're trying to choke her. Slowly, professionally, legally. Hyeo-woo stood by the window, his jaw tight. How long before they make it personal? They already have. Hyeo-woo turned, heart pounding with a clarity that didn't shake anymore. He reached for his phone and called his board, then his father, then the PR team. Then he stood before his executives at a closed-door meeting and said calmly, effective immediately, I'm terminating all current and future contracts with Han Conglomerate and its subsidiaries. Gasps erupted. Sir, those partnerships fund 42% of our tech division and 0% of my integrity, he interrupted. Ji-won met his eyes across the table and smiled, not with pride but with relief. Hyeo-woo wasn't a prince anymore. He was a man choosing war for the sake of love. Seoul didn't crumble, but the tower did. Kang Group's headquarters, once gleaming with stock confidence and patriarchal pride, turned into a pressure chamber. The boardroom buzzed with fury. He terminated the Han contracts? Without a vote? Does he think we run an empire on emotions? Hyeo-woo stood at the head of the long glass table, untouched by the chaos he had caused. I didn't make an emotional decision, he said calmly. I made a human one. Then be human somewhere else, a senior board member snapped. His father watched in stony silence, arms folded, not surprised, not proud, just distant. By unanimous vote, the board motioned to suspend Hyeo-woo as acting CEO, pending behavioral review. He didn't resist, he didn't plead. He simply stood, straightened his blazer, and walked out of the empire his bloodline built, head high. No headlines followed him that time, but he was already preparing to rise again. The apartment he moved into had no skyline view, no concierge, no wine cellar, just a twin bed, one desk, a creaky radiator, and peace. It smelled faintly of paint and purpose. He liked it. He unpacked one suitcase, pulled out a dust-covered laptop, and opened the folder labeled Ash Plan. It was a passion project from years ago, a startup app that had nothing to do with corporate legacy and everything to do with community. He had buried it once, told himself it was naive. Now it felt like freedom. He got to work. Across the city, Nora's life was quieter, but no less determined. The threats hadn't stopped, but they'd changed. The noise had faded into distant static. And now, in a small kitchen tucked behind a borrowed taxi dispatch office, she filmed her first video on a borrowed phone. Hi, I'm Nora, and this is Taxi Kitchen. Every recipe comes from the road. One city, one story, one dish. Today's meal? Ginger chicken stew, inspired by the woman who gave me directions, and life advice in the same breath. She cooked, laughed, spilled sauce, and wiped her face with a dish towel mid-sentence. It wasn't polished, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. And when she posted it, she expected 20 views. She got 10,000. By the end of the week, it crossed 500,000. Comments flooded in. Her voice is calming. Who is this woman? More episodes, please. I want to be her friend. The blog became a series. The series became a movement. Taxi Kitchen was a viral flame. And Nora? A phoenix people didn't even know they needed. Ji-won visited Hyeo-woo one afternoon, holding takeout and wearing his usual unimpressed expression. "You're coding in sweatpants now?" he asked, dropping the food on the table. Hyeo-woo glanced up from his screen. "They're linen. You look like a depressed intern." "I'm building something." Ji-won studied him for a moment. The content mess, the untouched takeout, the laptop glowing with wireframes and user interface designs. Then, finally, "You look good." Hyeo-woo didn't smile, but he felt it. Later that night, after Nora had fallen asleep in his arms on the couch, flour still on her cheek from recipe testing, Hyeo-woo reached into her canvas bag to find her phone and silence the alarm. Instead, he found a folder. Tucked inside, printed travel documents, a lease agreement, Detroit, 6 months, start date, next month. His chest tightened. He stared at the paper, heart thudding. She hadn't told him. She had a return plan, and he wasn't part of it. The woman who taught him how to rise again might be leaving soon. The moment hung heavy in the room, the kind of silence that didn't beg to be filled, it demanded to be felt. Hyeo-woo stood in the kitchen, lease agreement still in his hands. Nora sat across from him, the oven timer long forgotten, the scent of burnt garlic bread floating in the air like some ironic punchline. She didn't deny it, didn't scramble for excuses. She looked him in the eyes, steady, open, heartbroken, and said the truth. "I love you," she whispered, voice almost too soft to catch, "but I won't be a chain around your neck." He stared at her, the words cutting deeper than betrayal ever could. "Is that what you think you are to me?" She stood, closing the space between them. "You've lost your title, your home, your position. You're rebuilding your life from scratch. And now your name is being dragged through Seoul's business elite for choosing me." She reached up and touched his jaw. "And I've seen that look before, Hyeo-woo. The moment someone starts to resent the thing they gave everything up for." His hands gently wrapped around her wrists. "I don't resent you," he said. "I chose you." Her lip quivered, just barely. "You could have told me about Detroit," he added. "I didn't know how," she whispered, "because part of me thought you'd ask me to stay, and part of me was scared you wouldn't." He shook his head slowly, voice hoarse. "You're not a chain, Nora. You're the reason I finally breathe." Her arms fell around his neck and she broke, quietly, completely. And for the first time in a long time, the silence in the room wasn't about pain. It was about promise. She postponed the flight. Just 30 days. No bold declarations. No dramatic exit. Just space. A pause. A maybe. But in those 30 days, they decided to build something together. A food truck. Bread and Grace, Street Edition. Nora called it a test kitchen on wheels. He called it home. They painted it themselves. Warm yellow with hand-drawn lettering and tiny flourishes of Korean and English phrases. Healing tastes like this. They parked near high-traffic art districts on weekends and office centers on weekday lunch hours. Nora cooked. Hyeo-woo handled orders, logistics, and customer feedback, which, to his horror, included multiple ajumas flirting with him while calling her "your beautiful wife." They started a vlog, part food, part journey. Ji-won edited it in secret and posted anonymously. By week 2, it went viral again, not because of the food, but because of the way he looked at her. Every comment noticed it. The way he watches her stir the batter. "I'm not okay. Is this the former Kang CEO? I thought I hated him. I take it back. They look like peace." But peace didn't last forever. One crisp evening, as Nora was packing up near the Han River, a black car pulled up quietly beside the truck. Nora was in the back prepping the next day's ingredients when she heard the door open and soft heels on pavement. She stepped outside and froze. Soo-ah! Not in her usual designer armor, but in a simple blouse and slacks. No entourage, no smirk, just stillness. "I'm not here to fight," she said gently. Nora waited. "I came to warn you," Soo-ah continued. "Hyeo-woo's father, he's back." Nora blinked. "I thought he was abroad, handling overseas partners, avoiding the shame." She exhaled, "But the board called him back. And trust me, if he sees this," she gestured to the truck, "he'll do more than vote." "What does he want?" "Everything," Soo-ah said. "His name, his company, his son." "And what does Hyeo-woo want?" Soo-ah looked away for a long moment. "Probably you." She left without another word. That night, the letter came. Thick cream envelope, black seal. Nora opened it with shaking fingers and called Hyeo-woo the second she read it. He took the phone with calm he didn't feel. "It's a summons," she said. "A family tribunal." He closed his eyes. "Yes. What does that mean?" "It means," he said quietly, "they're not just coming for the company anymore." She swallowed hard. "They're coming for me." The private elevator stopped on the 68th floor, the top of Kang Group's original headquarters, the old seat of the family's power. Hyeo-woo stepped out alone. No entourage, no tie, just quiet defiance tucked into every breath. He walked the long marble hallway where the portraits of his ancestors lined the walls, each man staring down in stoic judgment. He never looked up. The double doors opened to a shadowed room, and his father was waiting. Kang Myung-sik hadn't aged a day in the way people expect. His face was still smooth, sharp, untouched by time, but his eyes, they were colder than stone and twice as heavy. "You summon me," Hyeo-woo said evenly, standing tall before the oak desk. His father didn't look up from the file in his hands. "Do you know what this is?" "No." "It's a list of everything your relationship has cost this company in 2 months," he said, closing the file with a snap. "Withdrawals, cancellations, stock loss, partnerships terminated, investors gone." Still, Hyeo-woo said nothing. His father rose slowly. "She's a foreigner, a distraction, a scandal. You are a Kang." "I'm not property," Hyeo-woo replied. "You're my heir." "Then disown me." The room froze. Kang Myung-sik's nostrils flared. "You would give up everything? For her?" Hyeo-woo didn't blink. "I would give up everything," he said, voice low, "because she gave me something you never could." A long pause. "Peace." His father stepped around the desk, eyes narrowed. "End it now, or lose everything. Name, shares, holdings, legacy." And in that moment, in that stillness that cut like winter air, Hyeo-woo exhaled the last breath of the boy who had always craved approval. He looked his father in the eye. "Take it all," he said. "I've already gained more than you ever gave me." Then he walked away, slowly, without a glance back, not from the man, but from the dynasty that had tried to define him. He wasn't their son anymore. He was hers, but freedom always has a cost, and it came quickly. 2 days later, Nora's phone buzzed with a text from an unlisted number. "Stay in your lane or lose your brakes." Another, "You're not Kang material. You're not even Korea." She tried to ignore them, until it wasn't just digital anymore. She was crossing the street after restocking flour at a corner market when a black car peeled off the curb at full speed. Tires screeching, headlights aimed dead at her. She froze, but Ji-won, waiting across the street, lunged and pulled her out of the way just in time, both of them landing hard on the pavement. People screamed. The car disappeared. Nora's heart pounded so hard she couldn't breathe. "Are you hurt?" Ji-won asked, breathless, checking her for cuts. She nodded numbly. I think I'm okay." He helped her up, jaw clenched. That night, he showed Hyeo-woo security footage from the nearby cafe. Zoomed in. The driver wasn't just some hired thug. He was known to the Kang family, one of their private chauffeurs. "I confirmed it myself," Ji-won said grimly. "They've made her a target." Hyeo-woo didn't speak, but his silence was volcanic. That night, he didn't go to the boardroom. He didn't call his father. He didn't yell. He took Nora to a small corner cafe space in a quiet neighborhood. The windows were covered in newspaper, but the smell of fresh paint lingered in the air. "Why are we here?" she asked. He took her hand and led her to the front door, pulled out a small key. "Because I've already lost everything they wanted to take," he said softly, "but I haven't given you anything you deserve." She blinked. "What?" He unlocked the door and pushed it open. The interior was bare, just a few construction tools, a ladder, and a long wooden counter that hadn't yet found its story. He turned to her, holding out the keys. Not like a transaction, but like a vow. "I don't have a ring yet," he said, "but I have this, a space for you, for us. For every morning we want to wake up and build something the world can't tear down." She covered her mouth, tears rushing in faster than breath. "I want to build a life with you, Nora." He placed the key in her hand. "This is the first door." The cafe was still empty, but Nora stood in the middle of it like the lights were already on and the world was already watching. She turned slowly in the dusty space, fingertips grazing the edge of the unfinished counter. Sunlight poured in through the front windows, casting golden lines across the concrete floor. It looked like something waiting to be believed in, like a prayer halfway spoken, and that was the problem. "I never dreamed of this," she whispered almost to herself. Hyeo-woo was standing a few feet behind her, quiet, watching her unravel gently. "I stopped believing," she said again, her voice trembling now. "Back in Detroit. When I lost everything, I told myself it was better not to hope anymore. Safer, quieter." Her arms wrapped around her middle. "And then I met you, and I thought maybe, just maybe something could grow again. But this," her voice cracked, "a storefront with my name on it, with our name, this feels like too much." He stepped toward her slowly, carefully, not the way a CEO walks, not the way a prince walks, but the way a man walks when he's approaching the one thing that makes him whole. He reached out and gently cupped her face, brushing away the single tear sliding down her cheek. "Then believe in me," he said, his voice low but certain, "and we'll write the rest together." Her eyes met his, wide and searching, no longer afraid, but still stunned that someone would choose her like this. Not in secret, not as a convenience, but openly, boldly, forever. And when he leaned in, she didn't move away. She closed the space between them, and they kissed. Not the kind of kiss that needs an audience, not a spectacle, not a symbol, just truth. Full, slow, real. It tasted like everything they'd lost, and everything they'd finally found. They opened Bread and Grace 2 weeks later. The paint had barely dried. The wallpaper in the back still bubbled in one corner. The custom hand-lettered sign was slightly crooked, but none of it mattered, because people came, not because of his name, but because of hers, because the taxi kitchen girl, the woman who shared ginger stew recipes in a borrowed kitchen and told stories while kneading dough, had finally built a home for her food and her story. and Seoul showed up. Lines wrapped around the block. Food bloggers filmed reels. Strangers brought flowers. Locals cried when she remembered their names. One little girl gave Nora a handmade card that read, "Thank you for making food feel like a hug." And when a journalist from a major paper requested an interview, they asked for Nora, not the Kang heir, not the scandal, just her. She wore a rust-colored wrap dress and soft earrings shaped like tiny rolling pins. And when asked what the cafe stood for, she smiled gently and said, "This place is for people who've ever had to start over, and for those who think it's too late." It's not. Later that night, she and Hyeo-woo sat in the kitchen, surrounded by the smell of cinnamon and melted butter. She rested her head on his shoulder, and he traced lazy circles on the back of her hand with his thumb. They didn't need to speak, because silence no longer meant distance. It meant peace. It meant belonging. The next morning, Nora opened the cafe mail slot to find a delicate white envelope. No sender name, just elegant gold foil on the front, pressed into ivory cardstock. Inside, Han Soo-ah and Kim Do-hyun. Joyfully request the honor of your presence at their wedding. Nora stared at it for a long moment. There was no note, no message, just an invitation and an unspoken statement. Soo-ah had moved on, or she wanted the world to think she had. Nora turned the card over and noticed something tucked behind it. A business card. Han Conglomerate. Global Logistics Division. Shanghai Office. Soo-ah's name printed clean across the front. On the back, a handwritten line. "You're not the only one who knows how to start over." The invitation came on thick cream paper, embossed in both Korean and English. Voices of Vision, a panel celebrating Black women entrepreneurs in South Korea. They wanted Nora Michaels as the final speaker, not because of Hyeo-woo, not because of scandal, because of bread and grace, because of Taxi Kitchen, because she had fed a city with nothing but courage, cinnamon, and storytelling. Nora almost turned it down. But Hyeo-woo touched her wrist gently that night and said, "You are the story. It's time they heard it from you." The panel was held in a modern art museum in Mapo. Clean lines, glass walls, sunlight that fell like spotlight. Nora wore soft olive green, her grandmother's favorite color, and her curls were loose, full, and unapologetically radiant. The room was packed. Foreign diplomats, Korean journalists, young business students, women holding notebooks with hands that trembled with possibility. She sat between a Ghanaian tech founder and a Haitian fashion designer who ran a Seoul showroom. But when it was her turn to speak, the whole room leaned in. Nora didn't rehearse. She didn't read. She told the truth. "When I came to Korea, I didn't come with a business plan. I came with a broken heart and flour under my fingernails. I drove taxis to survive. I cooked to remember who I was. And then someone got in my cab who changed everything. Not because he saved me, but because he saw me. I'm not here because I was chosen by a CEO. I'm here because I finally chose myself." The room erupted into applause, and from the back row, standing quietly by a pillar, dressed in black, Hyeo-woo's eyes shimmered. He didn't move. He didn't need to. Because the woman on that stage was no one's side story. She was her own legacy. The clip went viral within hours, not just in Korea, globally. The hashtags trended hashtag Nora Michaels, hashtag Taxi Kitchen Queen, hashtag She Built Bread and Grace, and the boardroom suddenly wanted Hyeo-woo back. The same men who once ousted him now sat straighter in their chairs, their voices clipped and convenient. "If he re-enters the company now, we regain our media edge," one said. "The public would applaud it. We can spin this as evolution," another added. Rebranding, said a third. But then came the condition. Only if he severs ties with the girl. They made the offer official on live TV during a broadcasted shareholder announcement, under the guise of strategic clarity. A poised anchorwoman read from the prompter, "With Kang Group's rebound in motion, the board has extended a conditional invitation for former CEO Kang Hyeo-woo to resume his leadership role, provided that he formally denounces his recent personal controversy to restore full brand neutrality." Everyone in the studio turned to him. Cameras flashed, microphones hovered. Nora watched from the green room, hands clenched, and then he stood. No tie, no lawyer beside him, just him. He stepped up to the mic, took a breath, and said, "This isn't a controversy. This isn't a scandal. This is the only thing I've ever done in truth." Gasps echoed. "I will not renounce the woman I love. I will not denounce the truth that led me to peace. If this company cannot move forward with integrity, it can move forward without me." He stepped down from the podium, just like that. He chose her. Again, this time in front of everyone. But legacy isn't just about cameras. It's about consequence. The same day, a private board meeting was called to finalize his official removal from the Kang Group leadership registry. Nora wasn't told. Neither was Hyeo-woo. The board moved quietly, vindictively. His father showed up unannounced. Shouting erupted behind closed doors. Then silence. Then a thud, a crashing chair, a scream. Board members rushed forward. Kang Myung-sik, patriarch, empire builder, and symbol of unshakable power, had collapsed mid-sentence, clutching his chest. No one moved at first. Then the chaos, paramedics, flashing lights, and the man who built an empire from blood and silence was suddenly fighting for breath. Hospitals always smelled the same. Antiseptic, plastic, time stretched too thin. Hyeo-woo stood outside room 517 for nearly 5 minutes before opening the door. Inside, the monitors beeped in patient rhythm. 4 fluids dripped steadily. The blinds were half drawn, slicing the light into strips. His father looked smaller now, paler. The oxygen line beneath his nose made him look almost human. Kang Myung-sik turned his head slowly when he heard the door. His expression was unreadable, but not surprised. "I thought you wouldn't come," the elder said, voice graveled with fatigue. "I wasn't sure I would," Hyeo-woo admitted, stepping in. "But I figured a man who built a whole empire might deserve someone showing up after it starts to crack." His father gave a hollow laugh that turned into a cough. He winced. They sat in silence for a while. Finally, the old man broke it. "I watched your broadcast." "I know. I hated it," he said. Then, after a beat, "But I also admired it." Hyeo-woo tilted his head. "My whole life," the elder continued, eyes trained on the IV pole, "I only ever respected people who walked away from power. Because I never could. Not once. Not even for your mother." There it was. A truth dropped between them like a stone in a riverbed. "So now," he added, his voice trembling, "I respect you." Hyeo-woo didn't cry. He didn't offer a hug. That wasn't their language. But something in his chest loosened. Not forgiveness, but peace. He stood, nodded once, and turned toward the door. Before he left, his father whispered, "She's good for you. That woman." Hyeo-woo paused, smiled. "She's better than good." Back at the cafe, Nora was already waiting. The lights were dimmed. A cinnamon candle burned quietly at the corner window seat. She didn't say anything when he walked in, didn't press for details. Instead, she handed him a small book, soft leather, bound with hand-stitched thread. "What's this?" he asked, running his fingers over the cover. "Our next dream," she said. He opened it and stopped. Inside were pages of recipes, some in English, some in Hangul, some typed, most handwritten, with little notes like, "Add more ginger when it's cold out," or "This one made the customer cry." And tucked in the very back, written on thick craft paper, "Bread and Grace, Seaside Edition. Menu ideas for a second location. Somewhere quiet, with a view." He looked up and her eyes were shining. "You built something for me," she whispered. "Now I want to build something for us." He leaned forward, kissed her gently, her cheek, her temple, then her lips. A kiss that felt like promise and permission all at once. "Then let's start today," he said. They spent the whole afternoon in the cafe kitchen. No cameras, no announcements, just the two of them cooking like kids. Burned a few batches, fought over spice measurements, flour fight. Nora won. Laughter echoed through the space like a hymn. At one point, Ji-won stopped by to return a misplaced supplier invoice. He paused in the doorway, unnoticed, and watched them through the small kitchen window. Nora mixing dough, Hyeo-woo stirring broth, their hands brushing, their eyes smiling. No curated perfection, just love in motion. Ji-won did something uncharacteristic. He took out his phone and pressed record. He uploaded the video that evening. No captions, no credits, just a soft background piano score, natural lighting, and 30 seconds of them in the kitchen, laughing, kissing flour off each other's noses, wiping the counter in sync. It was titled, "This is what peace looks like." He didn't tag anyone, didn't promote it, but the internet did what the internet does. 1 million views in 36 hours. People from around the world commented, "I don't know who they are, but I want what they have. I needed to see this today. This is healing." Actual healing, but someone else saw it too. Someone who hadn't reached out in weeks. Sua. She watched in her Shanghai office, alone, her tea gone cold. And for the first time, she smiled. Soft, genuine, not for herself, but because she finally believed love like that didn't have to compete with legacy. It could rewrite it. The old cafe where they had their first real date had closed down 2 years ago. No one had leased it since. Tucked in a quiet corner of Gangnam, behind a bookstore and beside a tiny flower stand. But Hyeo-woo remembered it. Every detail. The scratched tables, the too warm lighting, the cinnamon dust that always lingered in the air, and the first time he entered her taxi, where she refused his overpayment, where she gave him silence that felt like safety. So he bought out the lease for a weekend, not for business, not for nostalgia, but for forever. Nora didn't know what to expect when he told her, "Wear something comfortable, something that makes you feel like you." She wore a soft ivory dress with delicate sleeves, her curls tucked loosely into a half-up style, gold hoop earrings swaying as she walked. Ji-won drove her, said nothing, just handed her a card before she stepped out. Sometimes love needs no rehearsal, just presence. JW. She stepped inside the cafe and stopped breathing. The space was lit with fairy lights, warm and glowing. Ivy crept up the window frames. Framed photos of bread, laughter, old taxi rides, and cooking nights lined the walls like memory-stained glass. No guests, no press, just her and him. Hyeo-woo stood at the far end, wearing a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled, no tie, and his heart completely visible. He smiled as she walked toward him. In front of her, at the counter, was one cappuccino. Latte foam swirled into a perfect heart. Her favorite. Underneath it, written in cinnamon dust, "Will you marry me?" Nora laughed and cried all at once. You remembered my favorite foam heart? He stepped closer. I learned to draw it right this time. She blinked through tears. You practiced? He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a napkin sketch. Dozens of failed foam hearts, scribbled with notes. She covered her mouth with her hand. Oh my God. I couldn't propose until I got it right. She looked at him, eyes glassy but sure. I don't need perfect, she whispered. I just need you. And right there, between the smell of espresso and everything that brought them together, they said yes. No aisle, no officiant, no script, just whispered vows and tears and love wrapped in the simplest things: light, warmth, flower, and faith. When they stepped outside hand in hand, the sunlight poured across the street like a golden blessing. And parked at the curb, her old taxi, cleaned, polished, restored, a white ribbon tied to the side mirror. Hyeo-woo opened the passenger door and held out his hand. May I drive you home? He asked, grinning. She laughed and shook her head. I'm still the better driver. They climbed in together. Front seat this time. No more distance between them. As the engine started, the city faded behind them. Not in silence, not in fear, but in joy. Because love, real love, doesn't need spectacle, just intention and a good road. They drove off as sunlight poured through the windshield, painting them in gold. Laughter echoed inside the car, fingers intertwined, hearts anchored. But where were they headed? Neither of them said it. Not yet. They just looked forward, like the next dream was waiting just around the corner. 1 year later, the line outside Bread and Gray Seoul stretched halfway around the block. Again, tourists, locals, young couples, aunties from the neighborhood, everyone who had ever found comfort in a bite of something warm, a story told well, or a second chance held quietly between soft bread and fresh brewed coffee. Inside, the counters gleamed. The smell of cinnamon, cardamom, and Nora's signature brown butter banana bread wrapped itself around the room like memory. But this time, it wasn't just her cafe. It was theirs. In a frame above the register, etched into a smooth wooden plaque, she drove him to freedom, so he gave her the world. And underneath it, in smaller type, estimated by Nora Michaels and Kang Hyeo-woo, Seoul, Brooklyn, coming soon. Across the ocean, on the corner of Fulton and Stuyvesant in Brooklyn, a brand new sign was unveiled. Louisa's Table, a bread and grace cafe, named after Nora's late grandmother, the woman who taught her how to measure with love and heal with heat. The cafe's color scheme was the same earthy palette, cream, warm wood, olive accents. But the soul? Unmistakably Brooklyn. Graffiti murals of powerful women wrapped around the alley wall. Inside, the playlist was jazz and gospel and soft lo-fi beats. Kids did homework in the corner. Elders sipped ginger tea with knowing eyes. And when Nora walked in, hoodie, apron, and gold hoops still glowing, someone shouted her name like she was family. Because she was. Because she came back different. Not broken, not burned out, but rooted and whole. Their love had evolved, not faded. Hyeo-woo still rolled up his sleeves every morning to prep pastry cases and handle investor calls from the back office. He still let customers flirt with him and still always said, "Sorry, I'm taken," with the softest grin. And Nora? She still cooked like she was writing scripture with her hands. And sometimes she did. On a chalkboard wall near the kitchen in every location, she wrote a line from their story. And people read it like gospel. Ji-won visited them one evening. He sat with a pastry in one hand and a camera in the other, watching them wipe tables and hum to each other under their breath. He didn't say much, but before he left, he captured one photo, Nora and Hyeo-woo by the window, sharing a croissant, faces lit by golden hour light. He titled the photo, "Peace Served Warm," and it trended within minutes. Of course, later that week in Seoul, after the rush died down, Hyeo-woo grabbed the keys to their taxi, yes, still running, and jingled them in her direction. "Drive?" he asked. Nora raised an eyebrow. "Still can't beat me?" "Not once," he said proudly. They climbed in, front seat, side by side, like always. No destination this time, just music, soft jazz, sunset dripping over the hood, her hand in his, laughter that came easy now, a love that lived in every glance, every breath, every memory made together. He looked at her, eyes gentle. She turned to him, already smiling, and then came the final words, the ones they never planned, but always knew were true. "I took a wrong turn that day and found the only right thing I've ever known." 6 years later, Bread and Grace had gone global. There were 6 storefronts across South Korea, 2 in the US, 1 in London. Each cafe had a unique design, but all shared the same heartbeat: cinnamon, story, and second chances. But none of that compared to the smallest location yet, their home kitchen. It was Saturday morning in their Seoul townhouse. Nora stood barefoot in oversized pajamas, her natural curls wrapped in a silk scarf, spooning whipped butter into a tiny plastic bowl. "Banana muffins or ginger rolls?" she called out. "Both," came the reply from the hallway, followed by the clatter of something dropping. Nora smiled, wiping her hands as she turned, just in time to see a tiny blur run into the room. "Oma!" Their daughter, 2 years old, full cheeks, soft curls, and her father's dramatic eyebrows, hurled herself into Nora's legs. Nora scooped her up, kissed her forehead, and said, "You hungry little tiger?" "Appa say muffins." "Oh, he did, huh?" Hyeo-woo entered next, wearing a t-shirt with the words, "Yes, Chef," printed in Nora's handwriting. He held a toddler-sized apron and a banana plushie. "She insisted it helps her think." They all laughed. This was their piece. Not perfection, just real. Later that morning, they went for a drive. Their old taxi, now restored to mint condition, had been turned into a family car, complete with a backseat snack basket and stuffed animals. As they cruised down a quiet road near the coast, their daughter pointed out the window and squealed, "Birdies! Look, Appa." "I see them, baby." Nora turned toward him, hand resting over his. "You know," she whispered, "I still can't believe I almost left." He looked at her, a softness forever etched into his expression. "Good thing I never stopped chasing your taxi." And the meter, still running, just like their love. The end.